Mr. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for presiding here today. Let me congratulate as well the Secretary of the Senate, Greg Schmidt, and our Sergeant at Arms, Tony Beard. Rabbi Alfie, thank you for your inspiration as always. Senator Cogdill, Madam Speaker, honored guest, friends and family, former members, Senate staff, my Congresswoman Doris Matsui, Congressman Howard Berman, former Senate Pro Tem John Burton, Justice Arthur Scotland, thank you so much for being here on this very important occasion. Most importantly, thank you to the members of the California State Senate for having and showing the faith in me to be your President Pro Tem. To the newly elected members, congratulations. You are going to love the California State Senate, and I welcome you. I want to begin on a wholly bipartisan note here this afternoon by wishing a happy birthday to Cheryl Benoit. It's her birthday today, the wife of new Senator John Benoit. Happy birthday, Mrs. Benoit. That's one vote you owe me, John. There you go. Members, today is a day of celebration, but it's also a very serious day. I think back to 10 years ago this week, in 1998, 11 current senators, including me, were sworn into the California State Assembly. Sam Onnested, Dave Cox, Pat Wiggins, Ellen Corbett, Dean Flores, Abel Maldonado, Gloria Romero, Alan Lowenthal, Lou Correa, and Tony Strickland. In 1998, 6 others among you were already incumbent assembly members. Elaine Alquist, Rod Wright, Gilbert Cedillo, Roy Ashburn, George Runner, and Denise Ducheney. John Burton was the President Pro Tem. Antonio Villaraigosa was the Speaker of the Assembly. Gray Davis was the Governor of the state of California. 10 years ago today, in 1998, California was in the midst of a technological revolution that changed the way we communicate and represented the greatest economic boon that California had seen in decades. That year, eBay went public. 2 months before we were sworn in 1998, a small little company you might have heard of, Google, first opened its doors. The Dow was only months away from reaching a historic high of 10,000 for the first time. Most of us here today have crossed the rotunda from the green carpet to the red. And yet the circumstances we face today could not be any more different than they were when we started in 1998. We are in the midst of an international and national economic crisis that is affecting Californians in profound ways. Record rates of foreclosure, high unemployment, and of course, a dwindling state treasury. But frankly, the people do not see a state government with the will or the wisdom to fix it. This is a day of great celebration, but there is no shame in acknowledging what public opinion tells us. The public has lost faith in our ability to effectively tackle California's major problems. Our system is broken. 30 years after the passage of Proposition 13. Our system of state and local government finance is so tied in knots that it is next to impossible to connect first-rate public services with a stable, ongoing set of revenues to pay for those services. We have no articulated economic development strategy, and certainly no strategy to create high-wage jobs in the new economy. Let's step back for just a moment and remember why we are here. At the end of our term limit, and we're all bound by term limits, we will only be judged by the most basic of criteria. What did we produce? What did we get done for people? All of the inner house squabbling, all of the political one-upsmanship, the partisanship, the who authored what bill, all that will be forgotten. They'll only remember what we did for the people. As we take stock, beginning this new session, we have a myriad of real challenges. Millions of Californians lack access to health insurance and quality health care. Unbelievably, California has a 24% dropout rate, over 30% for Latinos and African Americans. Even with the 2006 infrastructure package, we are behind in infrastructure investments, in water, in energy, and in transportation. We lead the nation in improving the climate, but we don't yet understand, and we certainly have not acted on, the very real connection between education, the environment, and the new economy. People do not expect miracle fixes for these or other challenges, but they do expect us to get going. They expect us to turn this place around. They expect us to inject a needed shot of adrenaline into state government. They expect us to not fight about the petty things. They expect us to get off to a fast and aggressive start. Let's shake it up here in the state legislature in California, and let's turn this around. Let's give people the confidence that our legislature can be the leading policy-making body in the country. Today, I want to propose 3 tenets to guide our work. First, let's change the budget process. 2, let's demonstrate some early big successes in the legislature. And 3, let's make education and the economy the filter through which we focus most of our work. First, on the budget. We all have ideas and our own definitions of reform. And certainly many of those ideas divide along partisan and ideological lines. And those differences will be debated and fought out here both in the legislature and undoubtedly eventually at the ballot box. But in the meantime, we face a $28 billion plus problem which demands immediate attention. We will not rest. This Senate will not rest until we make a dent, and a big dent, in that number. As we begin, let us create a different expectation around California's budget. This afternoon, we're told the governor is going to call a special session to have us deal with this $28 billion problem that exists in our current year. We're going to be in session anyways. So I say, let's speed up the 2009-10 budget process. Let's set our own expectation and deadline of getting a budget done by May 15th of 2009. Let's use the May revise not as the beginning point of budget negotiations, but as the appropriate refined revenue estimate to adjust for the budget we already passed. Number two, today I want to announce that beginning with the special session, we are going to constitute the Budget Committee as a committee of the whole. Every member of the Senate is going to be a member of the Budget Committee. Every member of the Senate is going to sit on a substantive budget subcommittee. We can no longer afford to have any member representing 1 million people being on the outside looking in. We all own the problem. Let's have the institution begin acting like it. Today, I also want to announce the formation of the Senate Office of Oversight and Outcomes. This office will be charged with more aggressively evaluating the institutions and programs of our state government. This will be bipartisan. We will involve both Democrats and Republicans to work together, to be tough, to be skeptical, and to be relentless about evaluating the relationship between the taxpayer dollar and the program's proposed outcomes. Let's process more outcomes. Over the next several years, the public will see real, noticeable changes in the legislature's approach to oversight. Again, with a focus less on process and more on tangible outcomes. Now, the budget is preoccupying, and it certainly is the most important work we do. But it is not all that we are charged to do. Our legislature needs to build back its confidence that it can consistently produce results. Working with the Assembly and working with Governor Schwarzenegger, let's commit ourselves today to 4 signature successes within the first 120 days of this legislative session. We begin with economic stimulus. Let's aggressively implement the historic infrastructure bond package of 2006. For every $1 billion spent on public works infrastructure in this state, we create 15,000 high-wage jobs. $1 billion of Prop 1B is ready to go. Let's get it out there and working for the people of California. Let's do everything we can to fix the housing crisis. Even as the state's economy is obviously struggling, there are new green businesses that want to expand and provide jobs to Californians. We all saw the spectacle last week of Detroit automakers going back to Washington, D.C., and asking for a federal bailout. Here in San Jose, we have a company, Tulsa Motors, that wants to build a new factory to employ several hundred, if not 1,000 workers, to build new zero-pollution cars in California. They don't need a bailout, but they do need help getting the capital to build their operation while we all live through a tight credit market. I say we take $100 million of the funds we currently use for clean fuels and vehicles, it was AB 118, and set up a loan guarantee fund that will help companies like Tulsa Motors build plants and provide high-wage jobs for California. Let's build an auto industry in this state. Healthcare. Last session, the governor showed a great vision in putting forward a proposal that would have covered nearly all Californians with health insurance. The governor's vision is still the right vision, and we can get there. We can set a date certain. If we don't get this done by the end of 2010, we can certainly get it done by the end of 2012. But we need to get started. And so I suggest that within the first 120 days that this legislature pass a comprehensive bill that covers all children in California and begins marching towards preventative health care in California. And we don't have to do it alone. We have the First Five Commission. We have private foundations. And we have a new friend in Washington, D.C., Barack Obama, who has promised to make health care and children's health care one of his signature priorities. Let's get a water infrastructure bond done. We have spent the last 2 years negotiating the details of such a bond. It's ready to be closed. Senator Cogdill has worked his heart out on this. So have many other members. Let's get it done within the first 120 days, put it on the 2010 ballot, so we can move on to the more difficult and challenging work of delta restoration and assuring a reliable conveyance for water for all Californians. Thank you, Senator Simitian. There we go. And last but not least, let's pass the most comprehensive renewable energy policy in this state within the first 120 days. Two weeks ago, the governor signed an executive order committing California to a 33% renewable standard. Members in both houses and on both sides of the aisle have been working on the implementing legislation. Let's get it done. Let's get it on his desk and let's get rolling. And that's just the first 120 days. Because as we move past the first months of the session, we have to ask ourselves, what are the agendas that must guide our work this year and every year? I've thought a lot about whether there is, in fact, a single agenda which brings together Democrats and Republicans, business and labor, business and the environmental community, civil rights activists, and fiscal conservatives. And I do believe, in fact, there is one such agenda. That agenda is reforming public education, specifically middle and high school, and linking those reforms to the new economy here in California. The dropout issue, which I talk a lot about, and others talk a lot about, is not the whole problem. But it is, in fact, the lens through which we can view the wider challenge of the achievement gap and our lack of economic competitiveness here in California. Tens of thousands of kids are literally disappearing from the system. Too many who graduate don't graduate with the requisite education and or skills to even think about qualifying for a job in the high-wage economy. The business community is rightly concerned that California is not producing enough skilled workers. And too often, education and economic development are seen as separate agendas, when in fact they are one and the same. Let us begin a campaign here in California to reform middle and high school by making career pathways the rule rather than the exception. We should tailor most of our future public investment opportunities, whether they be bonds, direct investments, or tax credits, to assist high-wage job creators who in fact are willing to go in and partner with public educators as early as the 8th, 9th, and 10th grades. Let's commit to cutting the dropout rate in half or better within the next 6 years. Thank you. Let's look forward 2 years. Let's look forward 6 years. Let's look forward even 10 years to 2018, just as I began by looking back 10 years to 1998. What do we want the class of 2018 to say about our tenure a decade from now? Let them say it was a decade of delivery in which state government delivered for its people, that we consistently delivered budgets on time, that we delivered an education system worthy of our children, relevant to their lives and the economy, and necessary for their success, that we delivered quality health care for all, that we delivered clean, renewable energy necessary to heat and cool our homes while also protecting our environment, and that we delivered high-wage job opportunities by investing wisely in public education and in infrastructure. You know, members, times are difficult, but it is our job to both manage crisis and to think ahead. This is the year, as I've been reading all of the newspapers, to quote Abraham Lincoln. It's good enough for the president-elect. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle." Undoubtedly, we will make our mistakes in the years to come. We may stop and start. We will argue, and we will fight. This we should expect. After all, this is a democracy. But no setback will be permanent if we hustle for the people. This is the year of breaking barriers. It's time to turn the conventional wisdom on its head. It's time to defy those who say it can't possibly happen. Let's hustle. Let's hustle together. Let's have fun, and let's turn this place around. Thank you very, very much.